The injuries are starting early. The Blue Jackets are already down 2 of their top 12 forwards. We're going to talk about what's happening there on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms and also on YouTube. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. And the Blue Jackets look like they're starting their season as they finished the last one. And by that, I mean injuries are happening already. We talked about the Gavin Brindley injury on Thursday. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks. And immediately after that, news that 2 more guys were probably going to be missing time. Dmitiri Voronkov has been put on IR. No timeline yet, but sources seem to be saying that it's going to be long-term. My guess is potentially separated shoulder, potentially dislocated shoulder, definitely something in the shoulder area. He played all of 15 seconds against the Penguins on Friday or on Thursday night's preseason game before taking a hit, leaving and not coming back. And then yesterday morning, so Friday morning, there was the non-game group skate. So people who weren't playing in the Friday night preseason game in Pittsburgh. Well, Igor Chinikov got hit in the face and had to leave, but he's fine, we hope. Boone Jenner, something in his lower body. Again, he's still on the active roster right now, which maybe means that they're just kind of going to see how it goes. But yeah, injuries upon injuries upon injuries. We have to do something about the curse at Nationwide Arena. I don't know whether it's ghosts. I don't know whether it's witches. I don't know whether it's magic, whether it's just plain bad luck. They need to do something about it. Has anyone taken like a big thing of sage and just like wafted it around the entirety of Nationwide? Because I feel like that might be worth doing at this point. The injury to Brindley sucks, but he was, kind of on the outside looking in for the roster. Blue Jackets were already down, 2 top 6 forwards after losing both Laine and Gaudreau in the offseason. And now it looks like Boone Jenner, who is not a top 6 forward but was playing there, is going to be maybe missing some time. And then Voronkov, who was a middle 6 guy that had looked decent at points during the preseason, is going to be out for an amount of time. We don't know. So already 2 holes in the lineup, and then they've made 2 more. So Blue Jackets they can't keep the bodies. They can't do it. They were already on the lookout for a forward before the injury noise started. We're going to talk about a guy that they added literally like 2 hours ago in Kevin Labanc, which I think is a low risk, high reward. Which is not what I put on my little side thingy here, but it's preseason for us all still. So we'll talk about him in a second. I've actually got I talked to JD Young of Locked On Sharks about Labanc and what we can kind of expect from him. But he had a decent preseason in New Jersey, 6 goals in the preseason there. By all accounts, the Devils wanted to sign him, but would have had to sign him and put him on waivers. Send him down to Utica in the AHL for a while. And I guess he got a call from Columbus and they were like, hey, we've got space for you right now. You don't need to go down to the minors. And he was like, sick. So bringing him in, and even with Labanc, they're still only at 11 forwards locked in to the top 12. So ideally they need 2 more guys. I think they're still going to keep looking for guys. I think it really depends on, again, how long Voronkov is missing, how long Jenner is missing. We still don't have an update on Jenner at the minute, whether it is just like a short-term thing versus a long-term thing. But by all accounts, they're still looking for 1 more forward which they were looking for forward before they lost two of them to injury. So we'll see. Handful of guys still kind of fighting for that fourth line left wing spot. So Mikhail Pucher, Dylan Gambrell, James Malatesta, Owen Sillinger got sent down to Cleveland, which surprised me a little bit because I thought he'd done a pretty good job at kind of staying in the running for that fourth line left wing spot. Could be a paper transaction. We'll see. They have to set their opening night roster by Monday. Blue Jackets are currently over the salary cap, though, which is, or not over the salary cap, sorry, over the salary floor, which is important because since losing the Gaudreau contract, obviously, they were significantly under. And now I believe they are just over it with the Labanc signing. They are at the 1.9 million over the floor right now. So we'll see how it goes. But we'll take a quick break. And then when we get back, I'm going to play my conversation with JD about Kevin Labanc, what he brings to the team, what we can expect from him. Can he bounce back from the miserable season he had last year? Frankly, everyone in San Jose had a miserable season last year, so we'll see kind of what we can expect from Labanc. We'll talk to JD Young of Locked On Sharks about that. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. They're America's #1 sportsbook for a reason, and they're also our #1 sportsbook here at the Locked On Podcast Network. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page where you place your bet. And here's the best bit. If you place your first $5 bet on literally whatever you want, it can be NFL, which has obviously started up last month. You can put money on the MLB postseason. You can put money on the NHL regular season starting. You can, pick the Blue Jackets to win the cup. Doesn't matter what you bet on. As long as you bet $5, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, whether that bet wins or loses. That's FanDuel.com that you can find all of this. Once again, FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. I'm joined now by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. I figured who else better to talk about Kevin Labanc than someone who has both enjoyed him and been frustrated by him in recent years. So welcome back onto the show, JD. This is an unexpected signing for the Blue Jackets. It seems like New Jersey really wanted to keep him and couldn't. So now he's in Columbus. So let's just start off with kind of an overarching question, which is, this is a good signing for the Blue Jackets, right?
I would say it's a good signing, especially when you look at the term and the cost, which is under $1 million, right? And it's for 1 year. And Kevin Labanc can provide some scoring depth, which I think the Blue Jackets desperately need now. So I think in that it's a very low risk, right? If he doesn't work out, cool, you don't have to re-sign him. It's not like he's not like a progress stopper for one of your young players. He's a solid scoring depth piece. So I think in that aspect of just the pure scoring, the signing, the contract itself is perfectly cromulent. My problem is Kevin Labanc is the most frustrating player in the world, having watched him for the last several years, because there are times where you see him and you're like, wow, he's really good and could be a really great piece. And why doesn't he play like this more often? But he seems to get in the coaching doghouse constantly, no matter who the coach is. Kevin Labanc is getting scratched or put on the fourth line or something like that. So that's the frustrating part, where it feels like he's one of those players who's not good enough to be a top 6 piece, but he's his skill set doesn't really fit a bottom 6 player. And as you and I both know, you're only allowed to ice 2 good lines at any given time. So he's definitely he's just kind of stuck at he's like a tweener, but an NHL version of the tweener, where you don't know what to do with him. So he's definitely going to help out the power play. Like, he's very good on the power play. You can see that shot of his is very deceptive. I think he's like, wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of where he makes his money. But I think, though, for him and for the Blue Jackets, I could see why he chose the Blue Jackets over the Devils, because he's just going to get more chance to play and probably set himself up for maybe a bigger contract next season.
Yeah, for sure. I think that as far as I understand it anyway, is the Devils wanted to sign him basically to the same contract, but then said, listen, we're going to have to put you on waivers and send you down. And, you'll be the first guy that we call when we need a forward. And I think he very understandably has gone, well, I can get NHL time right now with Columbus, so I'm going to go do that. I understand all of what you're saying, and I agree with it for the most part. As we all know, I am a Sharks fan by marriage, so I have also been extremely frustrated by Labanc, who has, like you said, has shown flashes of being a really, really good player that can't seem to put it all together. My worry is, and this is something that I've kind of seen myself, I've seen a couple of other people tweeting about it, is his offense has never really been in question. He does have some adventures in the defensive zone, and I think that's what really kind of buried him, especially when David Quinn came into coaching the Sharks. Is that kind of a fair assumption?
Yeah, like, his defense is never going to be, and he's such a polarizing part, because if you look at, like, if you dig into the analytics and stuff, like, he's typically was a good player in that, but when you watch him on the ice, you're like, I think he's prone to having more highlight reel failures, if that makes sense, and maybe those just stick with you a little bit more than kind of seeing like smaller breakdowns with him. I think it's somewhere he's improved. Like, he's never going to play on the penalty kill or anything like that. That's just not his game. But I think for Labanc, though, it's just like, how do you get in the doghouse of, like, Pete DeBoer, David Quinn, like Bob Bugner, like, you get into the doghouse of like 3 separate coaching staffs, and it's just curious of what's going on there. I know he definitely had some issues coming back from his shoulder surgery and stuff like that. He's never turned into the player that the Sharks expect him to be after his 56-point season playing with Joe Thornton. But I think you're adding him to try to find some offense, and you're, again, hoping that his offense can just outweigh whatever negative he is in the defensive zone.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. Obviously, you can only have 2 offensive lines, and then your bottom 6 has to be checking. It does feel a little bit like the Blue Jackets are trying for a little bit more of a hybrid third line. It's going to be Cole Sillinger, and who knows at this point, because players keep getting injured because this team is cursed. But I wonder if maybe that's to Kevin Labanc's favor if he can play on a line with, potentially with, let's say, Cole Sillinger, and I think Igor Chinikov is another likely name to be on the third line. So, like, that could be in his favor. But I want to talk a little bit about last season, because last season felt bad even for Labanc standards. He had I think 9 points all season. Is that just because he couldn't stick in the lineup? He couldn't ever really get it going. David Quinn didn't like him for whatever reason. I know he was basically in and out of the lineup all season. Or was there kind of something more there? Was it poor play, inconsistent play, or just left the lineup and couldn't really ever get a chance to get back into the lineup?
I think it's not like the Sharks team was a juggernaut last year of just,
that's my question is, if you can't stick into the Sharks, if you couldn't stick with the 22-23 season Sharks,
23-24
Sharks, excuse me,
yes,
something has gone horribly wrong here.
I think that relationship had kind of just run its natural course, and I think both parties were just kind of ready to just go their separate ways at that point. So for Labanc, like, he didn't really play much last year. He only scored 9 points, but again, I think it was when he was in, I don't think he was utilized properly because of where he was placed, where he's usually kind of playing like 4th or 3rd line roles, where again, I think he needs to be more of a scoring option to kind of fully utilize him. So I think it was just both parties just kind of like, let's just get this thing done with and ready to move on, because since that was the last year of his deal. So yeah, I think it was just kind of a like, let's just end this thing, because it never was going to work out. It seemed like, especially with Quinn there, like Quinn and Labanc just never got along, never saw eye to eye about stuff. Even going back to the year before, where Labanc played 72 games in the 2022-2023 season. He had 33 points in that year, which was pretty solid year, especially coming off of shoulder surgery that he had lost most of the 21-22 season with. So you can see, like, he can still kind of produce when given an opportunity. But I think, like I said, I think both parties were just kind of like, the Sharks wanted to see their young guys and continue to tank, and Labanc just wanted to get free and go explore and try to get a new opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah. What's the best case scenario for Kevin Labanc this season? Like, what do you... Obviously, again, he's going to be playing on the third line. The Blue Jackets are not expected to make many waves for various reasons. Like, what would you look at and be like, okay, Kevin Labanc got X goals this season?
I think if Labanc is floating around like 15 goals, because I mean he's like in his heyday with the Sharks, he was a 12, 14, 17, even that year, that 22-23 season, he had 15 goals in that season. I think that's a really solid number to look from Labanc, because the scoring's never been the issue with him. Like, he has a really beautiful shot. He's like I said, he's really good on the power play. And he's very deceptive and kind of like being able to get that thing off from many different angles. But it's just like the rest of his game sometimes. So I think for him, if he's maybe, kind of maybe a borderline power play 1, power play 2 guy, if he's hot, you put him on the first line power play. But if you put him with people who can kind of do most of the work, and then he can kind of be the beneficiary guy. Again, go back to when he put up 56 points. He's playing with Joe freaking Thornton. Joe Thornton's going to make
points with Joe Thornton. Yeah,
Joe. Yeah, you and I could be on Joe Thornton's wing and score a bunch of points. And like, yeah, Joe Thornton just makes everyone better. But I think for him, having maybe a facilitator as a center, maybe like a lower. That third line, especially if that third lines are going to try to be a little bit more offensively focused, especially with Cole Sillinger, I feel like that's a perfect spot for him. And then you could either kind of go into the trade deadline, maybe flip him for another asset, and taking a PTO and flipping him for an asset, whether it's like a 4th round pick or something like that. That's free money, basically. Or if he plays well, you can, we know the Blue Jackets have all the cap space in the world right now. You could sign him to a short-term deal kind of going forward, as you're still waiting for your younger prospects to kind of slide in and fill the void. So
I am cautiously optimistic about this signing. I was unsure of it at first, and then the more I've thought about it, and the more I've seen Devils fans get mad about why they didn't sign him, the more I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I am, again, cautiously optimistic about Labanc. He's not going to be a game changer. He's not going to move the needle, but the Blue Jackets,
he'll have his moments.
Needle mover.
And the best thing is, whenever there's a bench penalty, you have your guy to serve the bench penalty in Kevin Labanc.
Poor Kevin. If people want to learn more about the Sharks, who by all accounts are going to be fun this year, if not maybe good, where can people find you and your show online?
Of course, the Sharks, who are not going to be good, but at least we're trying to get to a watchable, Jay. Just watchable this season. Yeah, we're raising the Titanic off the floor here. It's baby steps. We'll try to be watchable, but you can of course find the Sharks, Locked On Sharks, wherever you get podcasts, and watch on YouTube as well. And you can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks, and me on Twitter at MyFryHole.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We've just heard from JD about Kevin Labanc, so shout out to JD for hopping on this very wonderfully weathered Saturday afternoon here in California. And I thought we would potentially take a look at what the opening night roster could look like based on, additions like Labanc, subtractions like Voronkov. So I've pulled up the roster on Puckpedia. I missed Cap Friendly, but Puckpedia is a very fair substitute for this. And when you look at their forward group right now, guys, if we take out the guys that are on IR, so Dmitiri, Voronkov, Justin Danforth is still on IR. And according to this, Boone Jenner is on IR. So unless they have like changed what's happening with him in the like 7 minutes since I started recording this, but I don't think that they have. So we'll see how it goes. Again, we'll keep an eye on it. But if we take Puckpedia as gospel, healthy forwards right now, they've got Sean Monahan, Kirill Marchenko, Sean Kuraly, Cole Sillinger, Yegor Chinikov, Kent Johnson, Mathieu Olivier, Adam Fantilli, James Van Riemsdyk, Mikhail Pucha, James Malatesta, Kevin Labanc, Dylan Gambrell. So that's 13 healthy forwards right now. So maybe they keep all of them, quite frankly. But we'll see. Again, we'll have to see how things develop. If we assume that Boone Jenner is going to miss the start of the season at least, like there's a hole on that top line left wing, which we'll get into in probably Monday's episode once we have a little bit more insight into who's going to be there, who's not, etc. But Blue Jackets currently have 13 healthy forwards, plus Danforth, who's probably going to be ready sooner rather than later, plus Voronkov, who's going to be out for a while, all things considered, and Boone Jenner also on this list. But according to this, on IR, I haven't seen anything about him being officially put on IR, so again, we'll keep an eye on that. But as of right now, they don't need to cut anyone. They have 17 forwards on the list, but they're still counting Caden Lindstrom, John May, and Max McHugh, who are all injured on that. So there's not a lot of movement happening here, would be my guess. My guess is they keep all 13 of these guys. Obviously, I think they still want to add another one. I don't know that you can go into the season with like a bottom six right now of Sean Kuraly, Mathieu Olivier, Mikhail Pucha, James Malatesta, Dylan Gambrell, and probably Yegor Chinikov is the odd man out in the top six guys. Like that's not a suitable bottom six, like that is 5 fourth liners and Yegor Chinikov. Top six looks okay. As of right now, I think it's probably settling out to be Monahan, Marchenko, Johnson, Fantilli, Van Riemsdyk, and Labanc. I forgot about Cole Sillinger as well in the bottom six. So they have two third liners and 4 fourth liners. So like not the worst, but it's still not the best. Again, like I said, top six looks a little better. I don't know where Kevin Labanc is going to end up yet. My guess is probably in the top six to begin with, at least. Which I'm fine with as long as Kent Johnson is also in the top six. If it turns out that they have to pick one or the other, put in the top six, and they pick Labanc, we might have to have words, Dean Everson. But as of right now, top six looks okay. I would put Kent Johnson in that Boone Jenner spot and have a Johnson, Monahan, Marchenko top line. And then I would have probably Fantilli with Van Riemsdyk. Probably what I would do is actually have Fantilli with Labanc and Chinikov, push Van Riemsdyk down to the third line, and then have him with Sillinger and Chinikov. Or, no, put him with, again, based on who's healthy right now, probably I would have Sillinger with Van Riemsdyk and probably Pucha, if I'm being honest. And then fourth line, Olivier, Kuraly, and then one of Gambrell or Malatesta, probably Malatesta, if I'm being honest. And then have Gambrell as the 13th forward. I think that's all of the forwards accounted for. It's not an ideal opening night roster, but it's not. It could be worse. I'm going to knock on wood because things can still get worse. Obviously, all of this is based on them not picking up another forward by Monday, which is when opening night rosters are due. So they're still on the lookout for someone who, I don't know. But as of right now, not thrilled about this opening night roster as it stands. But again, I do think it could be worse as long as no one else gets injured, which I don't think they'll be on the ice between now and Monday. So we cross our fingers and we hope, in terms of the other half of the roster, the goaltending is set. They sent Jet Greaves down to Cleveland, which everyone knew was going to happen, despite the fact that everyone was really angry in basically everyone's mentions last night about what a poor game Daniil Tarasov had. And yeah, he didn't have a great game against the Penguins, but preseason, whatever. Some nights you have bad games. It's fine. If he starts having these bad games, like, over and over and over, then we'll have an issue. But Tarasov requires waivers to get sent down. It would be so dumb to put him on waivers and keep Jet Greaves up. It simply would. So, I don't know why people are angry about this. A lot of people are still saying that we should go out and get Jeremy Swayman, which, I'm not opposed to necessarily, but I also think that it has about a 4% chance of actually happening. But hey, I would give him probably 8.5 or 9 for 8 years. I just would. I don't know how they would manage to do that. I think an offer sheet would be fun, but I don't know that they're going to do that because GMs are cowards. But we'll go from there. Swayman not happening. The goaltending is what it is as of right now. If I'm wrong, great. Would love to be wrong, but I don't think I am. So it's going to be Merzlikins. It's going to be Tarasov, and then they have 9 defensemen. Which Puckpedia only has 7 of them on the roster right now. Werenski, Severson, Provorov, Gabranson, Jordan Harris, David Jiricek, Jack Johnson, and then not on their Puckpedia roster is Jay Christensen and Denta Matejchuk. So if we assume that because of the injuries to forward, they're probably going to carry 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, my guess is that Jay Christensen probably ends up on waivers at some point this weekend. I could also see David Jiricek getting bumped back down to Cleveland. Moving Provorov over to the right side, I think, was an interesting choice, and he didn't look super out of place about it, which is surprising in a good way. But it really does feel like they're trying everything they can to make room for Denta Matejchuk over David Jiricek right now, which I would like both of them on the roster, but I guess if you have to pick one, I think Matejchuk has had a better preseason and training camp, which is fine. David Jiricek is going to be a very good defenseman for a very long time. I think he deserves to be on the roster over other defensemen, but the fact of the matter, I would play David Jiricek over Eric Gabranson any day of the week. I would take 6 David Jiriceks over 6 Eric Gabransons easily, but they're not going to take Eric Gabranson off this roster, It's not happening. It's the same thing. They're not taking Werenski off. They're not taking Severson off. They're not taking Provorov off. Jack Johnson is going to be hopefully the 7th defenseman and not get regular ice time. If they do start giving him regular ice time over, say Jordan Harris or Denta Matejchuk or Jay Christensen, whoever makes the roster, then we'll have a problem. But if we assume that they're going to carry 8 defensemen, then they're going to have to cut one of Jiricek, Matejchuk, Christensen. My gut instinct is that it's going to be Jiricek that gets cut, that gets sent down, if only because Jake Christensen requires waivers. Jiricek doesn't. And I think that they want to give Matejchuk at least his 9 games before anything else happens. So that's kind of that. I think the defense to me is the question mark of this weekend. We'll see if there are any surprises. They might send Matejchuk down and keep Jiricek up and have Jay Christensen in the lineup as well. I don't know, but my guess is that they're probably going to keep 8 of the 9 defensemen, especially due to injuries with the forward, unless they pick up another NHL caliber forward, which could happen. They've got a couple of days to do that. And we'll see where we go from there. But as of right now, my guess is 13 forwards, just because they don't have any other healthy forwards. And again, like Boone Jenner potentially is 14, whether he's on IR or not. And then 8 defensemen, because then they only have to send one of them down. And I believe Matejchuk and Jiricek are the only 2 that won't require waivers to be sent down. Harris will require waivers, and Christensen will require waivers, and then the other 5 are locks, which is, it is what it is, you know? So that's kind of that for roster purposes. We will have another episode on Monday, definitely. If anything else happens this weekend, we'll try and get another kind of emergency bonus episode out. Maybe they'll go insane and get Jeremy Swayman, but I am not banking on that, you know? But I've been Jay Foster. You can find the episode. You can find me, actually, at _Jacob Foster on Twitter, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jacket. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. You can find the show wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on every podcasting app you can possibly think of, up to and including, like, Amazon Prime. We're on Audible. We're on all kinds of places. We're also over on YouTube. If you're not watching over there already, please feel free to hit the subscribe button over there, because I'm getting real close to 1,000 subscribers, and I think that's neat. So thank you once again for listening. We'll be back on Monday with a brand new episode where we'll talk about the opening night roster. We'll take a look at Cleveland, probably. We might do a Mini Monsters Monday if we can figure that out. But until then, make sure you stay locked on.